there, spooky friends. Welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace, this is Adam Diaz, and today
Hello.
we have a couple topics for you folks, like more things to, share with you.
Indeed we do. Pretty excited for this one. I almost forgot my woo. I was like so entranced
I was
with
looking at you
with your
and I
intro. I was
like,
oh, she's just so good at it now. I was like, fuck my part. So we have some new stuff, obviously, to share with you. I feel like one of these days we're accidentally going to present a topic that we've covered before, because at episode 139, if you include episode 0, because those were also stories, that means we've covered 280 separate topics, although we've revisited certain things, but we've not retold the same stories. So.
I was driving home today and I was just thinking maybe we should have done one topic at a time, because it's just, we've covered so many things, and there really are a finite amount of things.
There are. I will say, though, what we could do, and I've thought about this before, is, pick a state, Maybe have, a season where we decide to do, a tour of the United States and do, 50 episodes, one dedicated to each state, where we both find either, local folklore or something from there. That we haven't covered yet, which is going to be a little bit more difficult, but it's more specific, it's more focused. And then after that, we could do a season where we go, international and do other things. I don't know.
Meh.
I'm just spitballing here, but yeah, we're hopefully not going to run out anytime soon. And the nice thing is that we do a lot of paranormal, but there's still a lot of true crime to go, so we'll probably start dipping our toe into that. And before we get started, I got to say, I watched, the last 2.5 episodes of the documentary. What is it called?
Into the Dark or something like that?
Yeah.
Or I Will Go Into the... No, that's a fucking...
I Will Disappear Into the Dark.
Death Cab for Cutie song.
I know, I keep wanting to call I Will Follow You Into the Dark, and that's totally wrong. But yeah, I totally watched it. My mom was entranced by it. It was just absolutely fascinating. So totally check that out on Netflix if you have not already. I think Netflix is where it's at. I still got to watch the first 3.5 episodes.
I think it's on HBO.
Is it HBO? Check it out on HBO then. Yeah, it is. It's totally HBO. So anyways, that was my weekend, kind of. No, actually, that was just my Monday. I saw it.
It's just Monday.
Yeah. Jesus, it's been such a long day. Tomorrow's going to be even longer. But yeah, enough of me babbling. We're going to be covering 2 topics. Robin is going first this week. Robin, what are you going to be covering this week?
So I'm going to be covering Malahide Castle.
Right on. And then after our commercial break, we will come back and I will cover the Gulf Breeze UFO. So... yeah, I think we're going to jump right in. You're going first, like I said, So take it away.
All right, so there's more ghosts coming at you this week. This time, we're going to be headed over to Dublin, Ireland, visiting a castle that dates back to 1185. So it's a long ways away from
quite a long time ago.
Yep. A long time ago, not a ways from now, not the future.
850 years ago, about.
Okay, so with a history spanning almost 900 years... there's bound to be ghosts in those closets, because I assume there were closets. I don't know.
Isn't there skeletons in the closets?
I don't know what the saying is, okay?
It's skeletons in the closet, but hey, ghosts
they have
too.
Ghosts, okay? And the topic's not about closets anyway, who gives a fuck? In 1185... So in 1185, the land and harbor of Malahide was given to a knight named Richard Talbot, who accompanied Henry II, the King of England, to Ireland. And this Richard Talbot guy fought for the king and kind of invaded Ireland, pretty much.
Okay, so he is not a native to Ireland, then.
No, but the king was like, hey, here's some land. Congratulations. Thanks for doing that. This castle, this estate, is located just north of Dublin and is about 260 acres. So it's a big plot of land. Yeah. He took this land, kind of ran with it, built the castle for him and his family. The Talbots ended up living at the estate for 791 years. Wow. So this single family controlled this huge estate.
Okay, so not just the same people lived that long.
They're not vampires.
I don't know. I
or
thought it
immortals.
Could be part of the legend.
That'd be fucking cool, though.
So it's but the family's generations kept staying on that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And so they lived there for 791 years between 1185 and 1976.
Jesus, that's recent.
A long time. And it must have been so cool to grow up there and have been able to say, my family's been in charge of this land for hundreds of years.
Right.
You know?
If someone were to talk to them in a local pub, they'd be like, Oi!
Oh, God!
My family's been in charge of this place for hundreds of years.
I don't even know what
fucking
Irish
crush
accent.
that Irish accent.
Oh, God. Okay. Anyway.
I think you roll your R's in Scottish or Irish. I forget which. I don't know. I can't roll my R's anyway.
There's
so
no R's
matter.
in oi.
No, there's not. That's why I chose it. I love Australia.
All right. Jeez. All right. It's kind of like something out of Game of Thrones or something like that, where the Starks have been in the North for however long, you know. There was a stint of about 11 years where there was someone else in charge during that time. It was some conquest of Ireland. They just kind of came in, took over. Miles Corbett got given the castle. He was like a politician or something like that. Got given this castle by the leader, Oliver Cromwell. And when that guy kind of got taken down out of his leadership role, Corbett was then hanged, and the Talbots took over again.
Wow.
So
as soon as like the leadership kind of receded, they're like, hang him!
Yeah. And it said that Corbett kind of ran the estate into the ground. Like, nobody liked him. He was a piece of crap, right? He just didn't take good care of it. And it's kind of like when Ramsay, took over Winterfell and gave us their homes.
It's more like when Theon took over, because Ramsay, treated it like his prize, and Theon was just stupid about the whole thing.
But Ramsay then got fucking brutally eaten by dogs.
Spoilers,
and then,
Jesus.
If you haven't seen it...
6 or 7? I forget which.
If you haven't seen it already, you're probably not going to watch it now, because the ending blew. So, anyway. Yeah, so, Ramsay got murdered. Starks took over again.
We're talking about Game of Thrones, by the way. For those of you who've never seen it, people could think that we're actually talking about things that happened
Winterfell.
Here.
It was real.
Thanks so much.
Anyway, like any other historic structure, it goes through changes over time. So this castle, started as that original building. Then it was added onto. It was expanded. Each new person who kind of took over wanted to change it, and modernize it. It still looks, if you look at pictures of the interior, it still does look very much like a classic castle, but you can tell that there have been a lot of upgrades and things like that. There's like 2 towers at the front of the castle that were added in the 1600s. You can check out our Instagram later to kind of see what it looks like. It's really cool looking. The inside's really nice, and I think they did a good job modernizing it. It still does look like a classic castle, like I said. But there are, modern luxuries there. But it does have, like, those cool glass windows, like floor-to-ceiling windows that have, like, the crisscross stuff all over. I don't know.
Sure.
I think classic architecture is so cool. Anyway, unfortunately, the Talbots did come across a number of misfortunes. In July of 1690, during the Battle of Boyne, 14 members of the Talbots were all killed in one day.
It's a lot of people from one family.
Yeah, they had breakfast together in the morning in the Great Hall, and then rode into battle, and then never came home. The Talbots luckily did not have their property seized, even though they fought for the King of England, because, there's all this stuff about fighting back and forth with Ireland, England, Scotland, all that fun stuff.
Right.
It definitely, reading through this stuff reminded me of Outlander. And my mind is just a bunch of fucking TV references, okay? But
I like that I referenced Braveheart and, like, the First War of Scottish Independence, which is right around this exact same time. And last week, you're like, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, bro. Never heard of it.
I've never seen it.
And now this week, you're like, so yeah,
it's like
Ireland and Scotland and England fighting. Fuck you. I hate you so much.
Okay, so in Outlander, they cover the Jacobite uprising, things like that. And so the Battle of Boyne was a battle between Jacobites that were loyal to the deposed king of King James II, and between the people that were supportive of the current rulers, Mary II and her husband. But anyway, it just reminded me about Outlander so much because of all that stuff. I was like, Jacobites, I've seen that. Anyway, yeah, so knowledge nuggets for you guys. I also want to give a shout out to, I think, Charla on our Facebook group, who posted a video of her in Australia going through a McDonald's drive-thru and asking for McKnowledge nuggets. It was so freaking funny.
I would also like to give her a shout out because she said on Facebook that as an Australian, my Australian accent is Not exactly her words, but pretty fucking good. And that made me feel pretty awesome. I was like, cool, sticking with it from now on.
Yeah. Anyway.
Officially endorsed by an Australian.
Anyway, Outlander, love it. Recommend it. If you guys like drama, it's so good. Anyway.
Give plugs to that show.
It's really intense. It's really dramatic. But if you guys like super, super drama shows, it's good. Okay. Anyway, in 1975, Rose Talbot was the last surviving member of the family that carried the Talbot name because the last Baron, her brother, died. So it ended up with her. She can't obviously carry on the name anymore.
Which is bullshit, just saying.
Right.
It's just such a weird tradition when you think about it.
Yeah.
But that's a different topic for a different show.
So, sold the castle to the state of Ireland, and then passed away peacefully in 2009 in Tasmania. Supposedly, she had to sell it to pay off, like, inheritance taxes, which I guess if you're inheriting a fuckload of property, you're like, I gotta do something with this because you're gonna be taxed a buttload. I wouldn't know. Never had that. So, but that's my assumption. The remaining members married into other families. So any other family or any other Talbots kind of just married off into other families, couldn't take on their names. So just ended the line, which is really sad that their family had this castle for so long. And something stupid like, you're girls, you can't carry on the name. Dumb. Okay.
Yeah, that's a long, long time to have it end on, like, this cultural technicality of, like, well, yeah, you're a girl. So whatever man you find, you're going to take his name and your kid's going to take his name. Like, there's no room for a hyphen in there. You're not going to be able to keep this castle. It won't be part of your family anymore. And it's just fucking bizarre. Like, if you think about where that came from, I guarantee you have no idea. You know what I mean? And in so many cultures are different, and it's a different topic for a different show. So let's keep going.
Anyway, so now this castle is, you can probably guess, one of the most haunted buildings in Ireland.
I was wondering if it's going to be in Ireland or the UK or the world, because there's always a different tagline for these things.
Yeah,
so.
that's what I've read on the internet. Don't know if it's true, because you can't believe everything you read on the internet. But it is supposedly home to 5 different ghosts, which is different than 5 of the same ghost. Get it?
I've never heard of a multiform ghost. I've never seen Piccolo roaming the castle at night.
When I wrote that, when you write these things when you're tired, you ask yourself, why the heck?
Is it funny?
It's just... And
then you read it on the show and you're like, it's not, but then you cackle madly anyways.
Because 5 different... Why would I have to say 5 different ghosts? Why can't I just say 5 ghosts? Yeah, but when you're writing it, you write it and you're like, of course they're 5 different ghosts. They're not 5 of the same entity, you stupid idiot.
And Robin just let us know that apparently the delete key on her fucking keyboard doesn't work. So she had to make a joke to explain why she didn't delete it.
I just want to share my mind process and how things work.
Process?
Whatever. My brain waves. Anyway, so these ghosts are probably really active, and that's why they say it's the most haunted. I'm not sure, because I don't think they're the most ghosts in any one location.
Yeah, it's quality over quantity for sure here. That's what we're talking about.
All right, so one ghost is that of Miles Corbett, the guy that got hanged after taking over the castle. Did I also mention that he was drawn and quartered?
That's horrible.
And apparently what that means is you get dragged by a horse or whatever utility they want to use to drag you to wherever you're going to get killed. You're hanged, and then your junk gets removed, and then you're disemboweled, beheaded, and then your body is cut into 4 pieces.
Yep.
Which is, I assume, the whole quartering part of it.
Also, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen Braveheart. That's what happens to him in the end.
What?
Oh, did I just ruin that for you?
Shut up!
It's from 1994. How have you not seen it yet?
I thought he wins.
No, he does not win.
Oh, wow. Then why did they... It's just because he makes it such a big deal of him making his big old speech. And
yeah, he makes a lot of speeches in that fucking... He makes so many speeches in that movie, but... Yep, keep going. Everyone else is just like, Robin hasn't seen that movie.
I've never seen that movie. I just know he has blue makeup on.
Yep. I'm pretty sure he does his own makeup, too.
Really?
Yeah. Like, in the movie. Like, I don't know if he actually does makeup in real life.
So, funnily enough, being drawn and quartered wasn't widely used. Not everybody was like, yo, this is a great punishment for people. Let's do it.
It was like a severe punishment,
It's
right?
a very severe punishment. They usually didn't do it to women. It was just like men that they just really did not like. And it was mostly just used in the UK, which makes sense because if this was people that supported the King of England, you know, I could see that kind of bleeding over.
Right. Can you imagine, like, the escalation of execution styles, I guess? Or, like, ways you execute someone where you get to, like, okay. We drag them with a horse. Then we hang them. But we don't kill them. And then we drop them. And then we cut their dick and balls off. And then we disembowel them. And then we rip them into 4 pieces.
What if they were just really messed up people, and instead of murdering people willy-nilly, they took advantage of criminals and were like, I want to fulfill my sick fantasies, and we're going to rip this person apart.
The thing that's crazy about it, too, is, like, crowds would come and watch public executions then.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we don't have that shit anymore, because it's just so horrific.
It's very horrific. It's just such a strange thing to watch. I don't know. Maybe, but okay, they didn't have cell phones and they didn't have TV.
So that totally explains the thing. I heard TV was supposed to make me more violent. I've never had the urge to cut off anyone's dick and balls.
Just think about it.
Them.
You have nothing to do all day, and then you hear like, yo, you hear this one dude's getting fucking hanged in the square, let's go. You know?
I'd be like,
it's like, I'm not doing anything else all day. I already got 8 kids. Let's fucking go.
I'd be like, nah, dog. I'm gonna stay home. That sounds pretty awful.
Oh, anyway, this is just escalating into something completely different. So anyway, they really didn't like this Corbett guy. It was just punishment for crimes against the crown. And Corbett is said to wear a full suit of armor when you see him, his apparition. Those that have come across him claim that once they get close enough, the apparition falls into 4 pieces.
I was going to say, does it like split apart?
The thing is, if it falls into 4 pieces, where's the head go? Because the head was beheaded first, right?
It stays on the body, and it just like almost falls. It's like nearly headless.
Nearly headness.
I knew you would fucking do it. If I said
headness? Nearly headness?
That's my favorite character in the Hunger Games. Headness Catterdine. She's great. This is what happens when we record at fucking 1 a.m.
The corpse on fire. Okay.
What?
Nearly. I don't know.
Instead of the girl on fire? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Do they burn them at the end of Drawn and Quartering? We are not high, I swear.
We're so tired. I'm back to work again. Okay, I have to actually go to work. So
I have such a busy day tomorrow. I'm up so early and I present like 2 meetings. I'm so stressed.
Continuing on. Then there's the ghost that went to spooky sound school and
that's just such a stupid joke. Did they go before they died or after? Well, it's spooky sound school, so clearly they enrolled as soon as they died.
Anyway, so this one makes painful sounding moans that are said to echo through the halls of the castle. And it said that during the night, you can see this culprit wandering through the halls, and it's a man with a wound in his side from a spear. And this entity is said to be Lord Galtrim. It's thought that he lingers within the castle because of the crappy conditions of his death. So there are varied stories on what happened to him, but one has him having been ambushed on the way to his wedding, and then there's another one that has him marry his bride on some morning in 1429, only to then be killed in battle a few hours later by his rival, no less.
It's a bummer.
Only for his bride, his wife, to then marry his rival right after his death.
His death?
Or maybe soon after, but rude. Just saying.
That is pretty rude.
It's just like, oh, you killed my husband? Ho-ho!
I guess you win me as the prize.
It's just shitty. Just saying. I'd haunt the crap out of that place, too. So maybe he's groaning because of the wound, but maybe he's groaning because he's just like, ugh.
Wounded pride.
Yeah, like, fuck. I don't know. Anyway. Adam cut out like 10 minutes of us fucking laughing.
Yeah. If you're a patron, then you know what we're laughing about. If not, there's some exclusive stuff over on Patreon you can get for $1. Just saying.
All right. So there's also a ghost known as Puck, which totally sounds like a hockey player or something like that. I wonder what it was. What,
I don't think there's a whole lot of hockey players out there named Puck.
Don't they nickname him like...
They don't nickname him Puck. They just give him like Shoresy for someone named like Shores.
Is his last name Shores?
I'm pretty sure it's Shore, actually.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I don't know. It just, it sounds hockey words.
Okay, yeah, got it. Like all those basketball players that are named Ball. There's actually basketball players named Ball. That's what's funny about that.
Shut up, okay. This dude, though, is just a jester. Just a jester.
Just a jester. So is he a playful ghost, or is he still like the wailing, moaning ghost?
Supposedly it's a 16th century jester who was only about like 4 feet tall. Story goes that the jester fell in love with a woman, a lady Eleanora Fitzgerald. There are differing stories as to what happened to him, but it comes down to her being someone that he really shouldn't have had anything to do with.
Okay.
One story says he got distracted by her and then somehow hung himself when he fell off something while staring at her.
Hate it when that happens.
Most stories, though, say that he was murdered because he fell in love with her, and they were obviously not a right match for each other, according to whoever was in charge or whatnot. And so he was stabbed to death because of it, but supposedly vowed to haunt the castle after his death. And I don't know how anyone would know this exactly. I just assume...
It's like Friday the 13th Part 4 when the guy's like, he's killing me! Oh, yeah. You'd have to be shouting that you vow to haunt the place at that moment.
Yeah, for our watch party this past Saturday, we watched Friday the 13th Part 4.
The final
and
chapter, which is not the final chapter.
The guy that I thought would really help them get out...
Was worthless.
And while he's getting murdered... He goes, he's killing me.
Just standing there
over and over and over again. I'm like, why? Come on, man. Anyway, I just imagine while this jester was getting stabbed, he's just like, I love her and I vow to haunt this place forever. You know what I mean? It's just...
Hoping he has enough breath to get out his curse.
He was found outside the castle walls in the snow wearing his jester suit.
Aw.
Which is so sad. He has been reported to play tricks, so he's a very playful ghost. Being a jester, I don't see why not. Plays tricks on staff and visitors. Apparently his apparition has actually been caught in a couple of photos. I didn't see any online that had him in it, so I'm not sure where this evidence is. But apparently people have seen him in the minstrel's balcony behind a tiny door where it said that he lived.
Okay.
Since the sale of the castle, though, in 1976, he hasn't been reported to have been seen at all.
So he went with the family then?
Maybe. Maybe he has some connection with them, or he's just like, new owners, I can leave, bye.
Oh, yeah. I'm finally at rest. The property has been sold. And the light shined, and he walked into it.
And then there's Lady Maud Plunkett and her husband, the Lord Chief Justice of Ireland. She's seen throughout the castle corridors looking as if she's chasing someone. And this someone is thought to be her husband, with him trying to outrun her. They apparently had fights where she was incredibly possessive or abusive, so he's just trying to escape her. Visitors to the castle claim that they've been chased by her.
Wow.
She's been reported to have been seen in different periods of time, so just not in recent time. Like, she's been seen and reported throughout different eras, I guess. And again, to me, I know I bring it up a lot, seems like a point in time that's just echoing, like, her echoes just running through the castle over and over and over again.
She's not actually chasing you, she's just it's
that's just something she did.
Getting repeated over and over. Got you.
Of course, the castle also has the typical quote-unquote white lady legend. A quote-unquote white lady entity haunts the halls of the castle. In the Great Hall of the castle, there was a portrait hung there for years of a woman with a flowing white dress, and no one knew who she was, but legend has it that she leaves her frame and has been seen walking around the castle in her flowing dress. Doors within the castle lock and unlock themselves. Doors slam shut on their own. people are pushed by unseen hands, and water taps turn themselves on and off, which sounds like a pretty fun time to me. It doesn't seem like there's anything too scary. I would be really scared if shit just popped up in front of my face kind of thing in the middle of the night, or like sleep paralysis type things where the ghosts push me down, or things like that. Or like if I'm sleeping and I wake up in the middle of the night and there's somebody just standing there in the corner, that's terrifying. Anyway, you can go on a guided tour of the castle, and they even enjoy celebrating Halloween, which is really cool.
Oh, birthday gift for Robin.
Yeah. They also do a whiskey tasting tour.
So you can get really fucked up and then keep thinking that everything you see around a corner is a ghost.
It's after the tour that you do the or the whiskey tasting.
Okay.
So, they also have this cool thing that's like a fairy trail. They have a really nice garden, things like that. It looks really pretty. To me, it looks really pretty. And I definitely want to go. If we ever find ourselves in Ireland, I want to go here. It seems really cool.
I would love to stay there. I think that would be absolutely awesome. Just take some flashlights and go Scooby-Dooing around the castle. See what we can find. So that's just my dream. So I know you don't share the same dream. You just want to go and visit.
Yeah.
And do the normal touristy things. But hey, we can do both. I can convince you. After the whiskey tour, I can be like, come on, let's just stay. But, yeah, we'll see. 100,000 patron goal? I don't know. I can't keep track of all the bullshit ones I've made up to this point, but right on. Was that the end of it?
Yeah.
That was really good.
Thanks.
I love haunted castles.
Me
I absolutely love them.
I really enjoy them. I just love castles in general because they have so much history, and so many things have happened in all these different ones around the world, and it's just so cool that even if they aren't haunted and they're just bullshit stories, you can believe them because there's so much has happened.
You just look at a castle, you're like, there's got to be ghosts there. So many people have died there, guaranteed. Like, even of natural causes, there's going to be ghosts there. For sure. So, right on.
So before Adam gets into his topic, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll catch you on the flip side. Get it? The other side of the commercial break?
Yeah, got it. Hello.
This is the other side of the commercial break.
Welcome to the flip side is what I was going to say before she stole it. Hate you. So this week, I wanted to go a little out of my comfort zone. I kind of did that when I covered the Manson family, since Robin's normally our true crime expert. But this week, I really wanted to do something that more or less kind of freaks me out. So
aliens. Yeah.
I didn't want to go too scary with this one. I just want to go kind of scary. Which is
Scary-ish.
Clearly what we should have named our podcast. So I'm just kidding. I found myself an incident that involves one of the things that does freak me out, and that is aliens, as Robin said to ruin it. So, dear listeners, I present to you the Gulf Breeze UFO. First and foremost, shout out to Glitchgrim, because he was the one that actually suggested this topic. We always appreciate suggestions, and we'll usually give you a shout out if you send us a topic that does turn into an episode. I wanted to put that in there as a caveat, because sometimes folks suggest stuff like, hey, there's this legend, and I think it's really cool. And we're like, alright, let's check it out. And we check it out, and there's like 2 sentences in the entire internet that we can find. And then it's just like, this isn't going to be a full 30-minute topic. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And then they might get compiled into like, I don't know, an episode about that state later on. Just saying. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, this one is interesting. And I'll get started with this by starting with the time and setting as per usual. The time would be November 11th, 1987. Which
you guys
is really,
remember 1987, right?
Which is really the date. It's not the actual time. My next line, of course, is, y'all remember 1987, right? And then in all caps, well, you should, because I'm pretty sure I've told you about it before.
Really?
Really? No one remembers? I can seriously see the faces of everyone listening to the podcast right now like, has he told us about 1987 yet? Like, do you guys even listen to these? Does anyone care? I told you there would be a test at some point. I don't know when, but start taking notes, all right? Anyways, y'all remember 1987, right?
Have you ever really covered?
I'm pretty sure I did, because the link was purple when I went to click on it instead of blue.
Oh, no.
Speed version, gas, 89 cents. House, 92K. Brand new. Stamps, 24 cents. Dozen eggs, 65 cents. Fox Television Network started. Tear down this wall speech. Full House started. Shooby-doo-ba-ba-bow-wow.
Is that the actual?
The end of it. That's how it closes.
Oh, okay. You know, I paid almost $4 for a carton of eggs the other day.
Holy fuck. Oh my god, everything's so expensive. Anyways, the setting, you guessed it, Gulf Breeze. Otherwise known as Gulf Breeze, Florida. That's right. This topic is really a secret cryptid topic known as the Florida Man, which I've been seeing a whole lot of in the news lately.
Really?
You've never heard of Florida Man?
I've heard
all
of
the Florida Man
memes,
but
like
Florida Man, and then it does some bizarre, crazy shit. So, for those of you who don't know, Gulf Breeze is actually right next to Pensacola, so it's on the panhandle of Florida. And I'm not a cryptid expert on Florida Men, but I've heard that panhandle Floridians are a different type of Floridian than the Wang that hangs off the country. I don't know what it's called besides the Wang.
Peninsula?
Sure, the peninsula. So I don't know the dynamic there. I don't know if it means that they're better or worse, but I do know this story so we can judge panhandle Floridians from the late 80s, I suppose, based off of this story. And that's what we're going to do. So November 11th, 1987, Florida Man, who otherwise went by Ed Walters, was working late at night at home. His employment was of a contractor, which is just my stupid way to say he was a contractor. He noticed a strange blue light emanating from the sky in front of his home. He looked at a window, but it appeared that whatever was causing this light was behind a pine tree and he couldn't see it. And he was intrigued and apparently stupid, so he went outside into his front yard to investigate. As he walked out to get a better vantage point, he beheld something out of this world. I would now like to add in the disclaimer that this could all be bullshit. We will get to some skeptical parts later where we kind of break down what's about to go down, okay? So what Ed Walters beheld in the night sky was a massive aircraft floating in place, stationary. It was shaped like a top, like a circus tent almost. Or more accurately, if you've ever been to like a fair, like a state fair or a county fair, that thing you can get into that has like the centrifugal force that like pushes you up against the wall and spins really fast, that looks like a flying saucer. This is the kind of flying saucer it looked like, except think of that thing, but maybe taller. It has a different name like everywhere you go, and it's just, I love that thing because it pins you up against the wall, and me and my friends would be like, try and roll over and do a push-up, but you just can't because you're being crushed by the weight of like it spinning, and I don't know. That's what it looks like, okay?
I've never been on one of those.
You suck. They're so much fun. Someone almost always gets sick, I swear.
Really?
Yeah, because someone eats like too much elephant ears, and they get on this fucking thing, and they didn't realize that they're not good with that sort of force pushing down their body. But when you puke on one of those things, just fucking comes right back on you. Nothing you can do. So anyways, don't picture the puke. Just picture the thing, right?
Oh, God, okay.
So like stretch it out so it's just a little bit taller than it's supposed to. That is what he's seeing floating around in front of his house. So it had portholes lined along the sides of it. And picture like a house that has 2 floors, you know? You can have a window on the first floor and then a window on the second floor. Mm-hmm. So they're technically like in the same spot, but one's on the second floor, so it's directly above it. That's what it looked like. And it has these portholes just going around it, like equal distances from each other, just wrapping around. There was also light emanating from the bottom of it, which was like coming from this ring at the bottom of the aircraft. Think of like Iron Man, like when he's floating there, and he's got like his jets that are like on his feet and his hands.
Yeah.
Like think of that if it was just like a blue light coming out of his palm instead.
Okay.
And that's what's on the bottom, like a pretty big bottom of this aircraft. So upon seeing this, he went inside, not to hide, but to get his camera so he could get proof of what he was seeing. He came back outside and began snapping photographs of this craft, moving closer to it for that like really good money shot. You want to get like the sweet one. And the aircraft then began moving towards Ed, seemingly having noticed him, like the pilot or the people or maybe the aircraft itself was like, oh look, this person's taking pictures of us. The craft was apparently not moving closer so it could strike a pose. According to Ed, this whole thing floated at him, that it became directly over him where it shined down a blue beam of light that surrounded him. Sort of like a UFO spotlight, if you will, or perhaps a tractor beam like we've all seen in popular television or movies when someone is abducted.
What does it sound like?
Kind of like that. So, upon being surrounded by this light, Ed claims to have heard a voice that assured him he would not be harmed. He, in the most believable part of this story, didn't believe this voice and just started screaming. Because I think we can all agree most of us would probably do the same thing.
Right.
Like, everything will be okay. Ah! Like, they weren't having it. The voice then said, like, yo, dog, chill the fuck out. He said that the voice tried to calm him. He then had multiple images.
I don't think there's anything any voice could say to calm me down if it's talking in my brain.
Yeah, it would probably have to be some song lyrics that I could just like sing along with, but I'd probably still be freaking out.
Sour candy?
I don't know. No, not at all. It's not nearly catchy enough. He then had multiple images flash through his mind like a slideshow is how I saw one website represent it. And it doesn't say what the images were that were apparently generated by this craft or whatever being was speaking to him before he blacked the fuck out. So he woke up on his lawn, I suppose. There's not really great details aside from the fact that he woke up the next day. Before we move on, though, I would like to note a few things about the story and about my research attempts/efforts. I'm not able to find an actual account of this written by Ed Walters himself. He did write a book, which should not shock anyone. I was not able to find any blurbs or excerpts or anything that I could rent on any of the spots I normally go to, but I found books that quote his book, which isn't a bad way to get, information, but it's not direct from the source, which is what I normally like to do. I did not feel like buying this one like normal, because we're not, rolling in it, but there is a lot of skepticism that goes along with this particular case. And I am not one for donating money to people who I think are hacks or hoaxers. And I don't know if hoaxers is a word, but hey, it's in my script, so I guess it's a fucking word now.
There's a lot of words in the dictionary now that didn't exist before.
I'm aware. I searched for quite a bit, actually, for an interview on YouTube with Ed, and I did find one. It only had like 3,000 likes, and it's like super grainy. It's from 1994, and it's like a handheld camera, and he really just speaks about the process he goes through to release a photo of a UFO and how he sends it to get, like, quote, scanned by computers so it can be authenticated. It's clear he doesn't, apparently have a lot of knowledge when it comes to technology, but it's also 1994, Everyone's just like, yeah, computers will tell you if something's real or not. Meanwhile, computers are playing games like fucking Minesweeper, and it's not that... they weren't as advanced as we thought they were. They were not at the game. Skynet level quite yet. So, he doesn't seem like he's an asshole in this interview, but the interview is very weird. He's very nonchalant and non-specific on the particular Gulf Breeze event. He talks about like other UFOs they've seen and how like a lot of people saw him. He seems kind of defensive, even though the interviewers are very much bought into his story. He is also during this interview like signing his book for them, which was published in 1990, so only like 2.5 years after the event took place. And it's just this really odd, informal interview. It's almost like a home video. It's shot in a public place completely.
All right.
Yeah, it's like they're in like a youth center or an outdoors youth center or like where you'd go to play like softball or something like that.
Is it like some student film people?
No, I don't know. You can't see them at all. Okay. There's only 2 people talking to him. And then like at one point it's like a public place and then music starts playing in the background randomly and it's super fucking loud and they're still interviewing him. He's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to leave now." And that's the end of the interview. It's kind of weird. And I was like, well, I guess that kind of matches what you'd think of someone who saw a UFO, is that they're just a little bit off based off of their experience, but it's nothing that lends credibility to the story. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was just like, okay, cool, I watched this video, the guy's kind of weird, whatever. So when he does come to, what happens next is he gets the photos developed, and then he takes them to his local newspaper. And they wound up printing a story. I think they printed a story like 8-9 days later. And almost immediately, the story picks up traction. People around the neighborhood start talking about it. And this isn't the only time Ed sees this UFO. This specific UFO came back and was photographed by Ed again for the next few months, in fact.
Again?
Yeah. A local city councilwoman named Brenda Pollock claims to have also seen a UFO around this time. There's like a 3 to 6 month period where everyone around that area is just seeing UFOs. She has a picture as well, but it looks like an odd, like, strand of light. Like, imagine, like, a blonde hair laying on a black desk, okay?
Okay.
Where you can just see it, like, in just weird curves and whatever, not seeming to have any point to it.
Yeah.
That's her UFO.
What?
It almost seems like something that's bioluminescent in the water, and the picture is so dark and blurry, you sincerely cannot tell what it is. But she's just this local politician who comes out and says, like, "Oh, yeah, I totally saw a UFO, too. Here's a picture of mine." Naturally, the sighting that he had is thought to have spurred all these other ones because people were all looking skyward after they heard about it,
Right.
It became very big local news, and everyone was looking up one way or another. They were either looking up because they were looking for UFOs or because they were rolling their eyes super fucking hard at this whole thing.
Jeez.
With that many people looking up, they all started seeing shit. And I think it's pretty shocking that this number is as high as it is, but over the next 6 months, it said that 135 people reported 80 different sightings. So some of these people saw multiple things, called in, and it was like, okay, 1 sighting, 5 witnesses. But 135 people is a lot of fucking people over the course of 6 months.
But they all saw something different.
A lot of times they were seeing different things, but there were like 5 or 6 people for certain events where they called from different parts of the city to say like, I see this UFO in the sky, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there's a UFO panic. It kind of reminds me of Satanic Panic in the 80s. One claimed to see a similar object that Ed saw with portholes and light coming from the bottom. Another claimed to see an object they described so very well as, quote, medium to large with light coming from it. They really got out their word paintbrush to give us that beautiful knowledge picture.
If there were different types of things that they saw in the sky, do you think it's possible that there was like a
UFO convention,
an alien war type,
alien picnic? I think if there was a war, they'd be shooting each other, like that one I covered from like
with
I
the
think
laser
it was like 20
beams.
Yeah, it's like 20 episodes back where the crafts were actually blowing up in the sky and shit.
Maybe this one's just like, hey, this is your yearly alien checkup. We're just here to check on your planet.
I'm going with HumanCon 1987.
HumanCon?
Yeah, they all show up and they dress like humans and like, look, I only have 2 arms and 2 eyes. I'm dumb. And they just walk around and make fun of us the whole time while we're all looking up and taking these super grainy, shitty pictures. Ed continued to take photos, which is natural. You know, if you're someone who saw a UFO, you'd want to keep taking photos, especially if they keep visiting you. They're all very high quality, or at the time they were considered very high quality, especially when, you know, pictures of UFOs have always been like black and white or pale or blurry, and these ones are fairly clear. And people were naturally skeptical, including the UFO community. And when I say that, I'm not talking about like the UFOs themselves. I'm talking about people who believe in UFOs. It's not like the UFOs themselves are like, there's no way Brain Dead Ed got a picture of us, let alone 30. That dude's full of shit. Like, I can only speculate what the aliens are saying about us. Ed kept seeing this same craft over and over. On December 2nd of 1987, he was awoken, this is all according to Ed, he was awoken at 3 a.m. by his dog barking viciously. Those 2 details right there, the time and the dog barking in the middle of the night, are pretty fucking terrifying.
Right.
You know? He quote, pulled up the bedroom window shade to see this small, shielded being standing just on the other side of the glass, looking into his eyes. Now, folks, I know some of you don't use the social medias, but I implore you, you have got to go to our Instagram or Facebook to see this shit. It's Instagram.com/ScarishPodcast or Facebook.com/ScarishPodcast. Ed drew a sketch of what he saw that night. And my description of it is hysterical. It looks like something a kid drew, and I fucking love it so much. Anyone listening,
looks ridiculous.
Anyone listening the day this comes out, give me like till 11 a.m. Pacific time to get these pictures up. I have an early and super busy day today, but as soon as I get my first break, that is totally going to our Instagram. That's not the final time Ed would be visited. In fact, he states he was visited multiple times, but it's just like he has these certain instances where it got really bad that he talks about. On January 12th of 1988, Ed was driving along a deserted road, can't find why, about 5 miles from his home when another UFO appeared overhead and shone a light down on the road. So this one activates my skepticism immediately, because it's like, why are you on a deserted road in the middle of nowhere, except if you're literally going places hoping there's going to be no other witnesses, you know?
Right.
He claims he had to drive off the road to avoid it because it was so bright. He pulled over and took a picture of the object floating just above the road. That picture will also be on our Instagram. People were very, very skeptical of Ed. Skeptical enough that he actually allowed his skeptics to submit him to a professionally administered, supposedly, polygraph test. Twice. And both times he passed the polygraph test.
But you can't trust those things.
I put my next bullet point. I would like to note that polygraphs are no longer submissible as evidence, but still, like, Maury Povich uses them to determine baby daddies and shit. So they're not completely worthless. Yeah, dude, they totally used to take, like, polygraphs to see if people were cheating, and they'd be like, and that was a lie. And then it'd be like, oh shit. And someone would like run off the stage. It wasn't like Jerry Springer where they'd all start fighting or anything, but like his whole thing was like, that was a lie. It's him revealing the polygraph test answers. Anyways.
Is he the one that had like paternity tests and stuff?
Yeah.
He
always had like the good drama, but it wouldn't ever be too violent. So, okay, we're going to keep moving on. At this point, it's really hard to know where to go with this particular story. It seems plausible this guy saw some form of flying saucer or unidentified flying object that may have been extraterrestrial. And I've seen the movie Dark Skies. The idea that after seeing something bizarre and extraterrestrial, it keeps stalking you is fucking terrifying, you know?
Yeah.
Like that scene where they go and see the dude, J.K. Simmons, and he's like, there's 10 signs that you're being followed by aliens.
Yeah.
And they're like, this guy's full of shit. And he starts reading off the 10 signs, and every fucking thing is happening to them. I'm like getting goosebumps just thinking about that.
Oh my god,
that is one of the creepiest scenes in a horror flick I have ever seen. Because they're just realizing, like, they are fucked. So, like, this guy's seeing the same thing over and over. There's two sides to it. This guy could be completely full of shit, or he could be going through one of the most horrific things anyone could ever go through, you know? The fact that I've seen an interview with him in 1994 where he's very nonchalant, not worried about it at all, not impressed with the things he's seen, makes me lean towards the skeptical side, you know? And the fact that he's taken so many pictures and then wrote a book immediately seems like really convenient to me. He brought a lot of attention to himself with this, not just from supposed aliens, but from people. And the photos are heavily scrutinized because of this, especially when they're starting to be put out, because they're in such good quality. And photography experts note that the lighting that this device is supposedly emitting is not being shown on any of the nearby trees or light poles or like flat surfaces around the object itself. Mm-hmm. You're actually capturing an image of a light source. There's like reflections or place the light is just simply landing on that the photograph will also capture, which is not present in any of these pictures. So photographic experts are like, these pictures look like horseshit. And they're coming out just to say, like, hey, someone brought this up to me. This is what I do for a living. This doesn't look real. Witnesses that came along after the initial event did not backtrack on their stories for those 6 months where they were all seeing shit. But a lot of them did start adding caveats like they saw, quote, something. Maybe not an alien, maybe not flying saucer anymore, but they saw something, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like the whole getting caught up in the moment, perhaps, maybe seeing something that's ordinary and thinking it's something more than it actually is, you know? Like anyone who's ever stared at clouds eventually can see shapes in them. So it's not outlandish to think if you got UFO in the brain and you see something in the sky, you might just jump straight to like aliens, you know?
Yeah.
So that's something I think we can all understand. And Ed took a lot of shit. You know, when you bring attention to yourself like this, there's going to be a lot of people who doubt you, and people are going to dig into your past. And they also dug into his credentials. And when they did that, one of these skeptics discovered photos from Ed, from his past, that showed he was familiar with and experienced in the process of, quote, double exposing. Where you take a picture, you expose it a second time to a different image, typically to layer two images to look like one, you know?
Yeah.
And he did not claim, he claimed, in fact, he did not have this sort of experience, but it still wouldn't explain what's going on unless there was an actual picture of some saucer being, like, layered over the top of a landscape. And Ed winds up moving a little over a year after the initial sighting in December of 1988. He actually made some money with, like, appearances and interviews after this whole thing kicked off, and some money we're going to talk about in a little bit regarding his book. His old home was then purchased by one Bob and Sarah Lee Menzer. This, as they say, is where the plot thickens here a little bit. I believe the reason that this happens is because of the book that Ed Walters publishes. It comes out in 1990. Regardless of why it happened, because I haven't nailed down a specific reason, a local reporter comes to the home to interview Bob and Sarah about the sightings that took place around their home. During the course of the interview, he asks the couple, yo dogs, have you found anything like UFO-y around the house, even if you haven't seen anything? And at that moment, Bob had a light bulb go off. 3 months prior to this interview, in March of 1990, Bob was doing some maintenance on their home, and he went to the attic to locate the shutoff valve for their water pipes. While he was in the attic, he found what he assumed to be some type of model. Wasn't exactly sure what it was, something left over from the previous owner, and he just said, like, oh, fuck it, it's weird, but it's here. and he just went on with his life. It was oddly shaped, and so Bob thought, you know what? I'm going to go grab that thing during the interview. He goes inside and he brings it out, and lo and behold, it looks almost identical to the craft in the photos.
What?
It's this painted model that was in his attic, and this winds up becoming the story. The story instantly turns into the newspaper. Like, imagine like the movies where you see like the spinning newspapers, like da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then you see the headline, and the headline's like UFO sightings and photographs a hoax. Like Ed Walters full of shit. So the skeptics immediately like chalk this thing up to solved. They say Ed is a fraud, he's a phony. Lots of people are let down, and local media starts pointing out the differences in UFO sightings that aren't related to Ed's. Kind of like they're starting to distance themselves from his sighting, like the city councilwoman who saw like the wispy strings of light.
Yeah.
Ed saw this very specific craft over and over and over. Now they have a model. It would explain why he's the only one seeing this thing. He's also seeing it in these remote locations for some reason. And people definitely started to separate themselves from his story. Now, Ed claims multiple things when this model is found. And most sites note that he just claimed one thing. He claimed that it was planted there to discredit him. Someone made this model and put it there to make him look like he was lying.
He would say that.
So I found one internet site, which, you know, they're always right. They're never lying. I found one account that states he actually had 3 responses. The first thing he said when he found out about the model is that he'd have to be a fool to leave behind such evidence. Which seems like a really candid answer, like, man, I'd have to be fucking stupid to leave that behind, like you're angry at yourself for doing it. The second thing he says soon after is that he claims it was planted there to discredit him. Now, apparently after some time went by, someone investigated what it was built out of and found that it was built out of a paper, and I don't know how they identified this. I couldn't find any information on it, but it was made with some paper that was able to be linked to Ed specifically. Like, whether or not it was like his social security card in it, like a papier-mâché fucking model, I don't know. But whatever they found, whatever evidence they located, he winds up admitting this thing was made with his paper. Like, yeah, that's my shit. But then he goes on to explain that
shit
like,
is bananas.
When people were following him around, there was journalists and skeptics that came to his home and started going through his trash. And it had chased them away. So he's like, they probably took my trash so they could create it and then plant it in my home to discredit me later.
That's too much.
It is way too much. There's also some story I found on a couple websites where he states that someone from the Air Force came to interview him, and he found out that he wasn't from the Air Force, but when people pressed him on the story, like, well, how'd you find out? Like, he just stopped talking about it. It's like he almost forgot, like, there's details to a story that you have to figure out, which is just really weird. So everything about this seems very shady, especially when the model comes out. It's like this whole thing starts to kind of collapse. The same site that talks about the 3 responses that Ed had also claims that when he was writing his book, the publisher gave him an advance of $200,000.
What?
And that ABC Television paid him $400,000 for the rights to a mini-series on the events that transpired. So that's a lot of money to make off of this hoax, you know?
Yeah. Man, I wish I could make that much money.
Same here, man. Like, the same site... It just, I don't know, I can't confirm this, I can't find any sources. Not having published a book yet, and not having sold the rights to a miniseries all my life yet, I cannot tell you with any degree of certainty whether or not those numbers sound accurate at all. That said, the claim that this website makes definitely sounds like bullshit. Those numbers sound way, way too high, even for such an incredible event. With as much scrutiny as there was, I can't imagine throwing that much money at someone to get, like, the exclusive rights on it, you know?
Yeah.
But then again, like, who knows? I don't know. And I cannot find this information with interviews with Ed. I don't know. I won't call him reclusive because, you know, maybe I just didn't dig hard enough. But it was definitely more difficult to find information on this than a whole lot of other things I have researched. The reporter who obtained that model took it with him, and he went to similar settings as Ed and decided to recreate some of the photos himself to see what he could do. And what he was able to generate look shockingly similar to the photos that Ed presented as solid evidence.
Wow.
He used the double exposure technique. So when I post the picture of that craft like floating above the road, there's one where he went to the same road, I'm pretty sure, and took the model. And he did his own picture. And aside from like the light, the color being slightly different, they're almost identical.
Wow.
So those are going to be on the Instagram, so you can see that as well, and you can come up with your own conclusion. And people do still talk about this. A lot of the stuff I found was like 30 years ago, which means it was published in 2017, which means that people still bring this one up, even though it seems like, yeah, this is probably a hoax. And it is a very polarizing topic for quite a few folks. Like, in a few different articles I found from 2017, there's multiple people interviewed, some people saying, like, it's absolutely proof of alien existence, and then other people being like, yeah, that dude is full of shit. And people just either completely believe it or don't believe it. A lot of the UFO sites that I go to when I look up stuff like this, that lean on the, like, believer side of things, they treat this one as very unreliable, and they treat it like it should be taken with a huge grain of salt. So what I'm going to end this on isn't my normal wild theory that wraps everything up. I just want to talk about how this shakes out in my eyes. So when you have subjects like UFOs or aliens or even cryptids or ghosts, etc., it's not a normal thing to have happen, to see something like this or to have an experience with something like this. It is quite literally the definition of extraordinary. And when people fake things, it's very, very disheartening, especially to someone like me, who has, like, the whole I want to believe poster on my, like, theoretical wall, and, like, we have the actual poster that we just need to frame and put up, too. I think that a lot of us really want to see something extraordinary happen, and for most folks out there, they won't experience something like this. Most people aren't just going to see a UFO, like, in perfect line of sight, and then get semi-abducted and then black out. You know, that's not going to happen to just about everyone you meet.
Yeah.
And for those that actually do have something happen to them, the level of skepticism they are met with is overwhelming. It's smothering. Like, people in general, at every given point in human history, have thought that they know everything there is to know. Like, there's nothing new to learn, because if there was, we would already know about it. And anytime you exist, just by simply existing in the present, you're smack dab in the newest iteration of a culture of ignorance, simply based in our own arrogance. We must know everything. We're brilliant. And the only way we move out of that ignorance is with, like, a genuine discovery. Like, just look back at milestones in human history. Like, if you have a cell phone in your pocket that can call anyone, access Google with all the information you can find on the internet, and contain every song, basically, ever. If you were to take that back 30 years, someone's fucking head would explode. They would not believe you were showing them something that was real. They would call it a hoax. They would say a bunch of different shit about how you made it up, you know? Mm-hmm. If you go back, like, 50, 60, 70 years before the space race, just saying, like, yeah, we're going to build a giant fucking rocket and put people on the moon, which some people still dispute. People be like, you're full of shit. There's no way. We're never going to do that. And just think about all the milestones going back, where it's like, the Earth is flat. Everyone fucking knew the Earth was flat, until there was, like, physical proof the Earth isn't flat, and people still debate that one, too. Which is crazy to me, because it's like, you can just go in one line and come back to the same point.
Yeah.
Like, that's just something you can do, and they acknowledge that, and then they say something like Pac-Man theory, which I literally read online, where you go off the edge of the map and you show up on the other side of the world because Pac-Man theory somehow exists. So there's always this level of skepticism that no matter what the discovery is, people are going to say, like, yeah, that's fake. No matter how obvious it could be, it's completely fake. And when it comes to these paranormal or supernatural or extraterrestrial experiences, the skepticism is so substantial, you basically have to have absolute proof, and even then, people are still going to accuse you of faking it. And it's very, very frustrating that when the path to discovery is so difficult, that people would deliberately put out fake information. Whether it be for fame, or fortune, or simply attention, the most damaging thing to the truth is not the absence of evidence, it's the presence of fake evidence. It's the presence of hoaxes. Like, not seeing something is not definitive proof. It doesn't exist anywhere. Lack of evidence has never really been evidence. But having evidence that something extraordinary is actually fake just adds this extra layer that truth has to push through to finally be revealed. And I'm telling you this 139 episodes in, because this sort of thing is exactly why I cannot fucking stand stuff like Ghost Adventures. For, like, every fake experience cooked up to make an episode more dramatic, that's one more layer of skepticism that's going to be, like, added to someone who may have actually had something happen to them. And that's why it always bothers me. It's so hard to find an authentic thing that happened when you have to sift through the bullshit that's put out there by money grubbers or attention seekers or fame seekers, and it just drives me nuts. And hoaxes and fabrications just really suck. It is sincerely okay to not have experienced something, whether it's before or in the future. Like, a healthy dose of skepticism should exist for people against both folks that 100% buy into anything and people that 100% dismiss it. And we just get sucked to both sides at the same time. And even with something like this that definitely feels like a hoax, you can't be 100% certain. But if it is a hoax, it is so frustrating. Like, my personal feelings here, this one definitely feels like a hoax. So much. But hey, maybe that's what someone wants me to think. Maybe it was actually planted.
That's what the aliens want you to think.
You don't know, right? But that, my spooky friends, is the Gulf Breeze UFO.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I know it's a little bit ranty at the end there, but I just get driven mad by how much people fake stuff. And the more you watch Ghost Adventures in the background, I'm like, God, I hate this show so much.
We're all mad here.
I hate you. But yeah, that's everything I have for episode 139, so I hope you enjoy that. Don't forget to check out our Instagram. These pictures are pretty hilarious. So the sketch that he drew of this alien is just one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life, and I really enjoyed it. He drew features for stuff he couldn't see.
Oh yeah, I saw like the little alien head underneath the...
Yeah, possibly this is what it looks like.
Ugh.
Couldn't actually see the hands, yet he drew hands, so there's just a lot, and I hope you guys check it out. But yeah, if you have a story, it does not have to be related to the stuff we cover, but whether it's paranormal, extraterrestrial, spiritual, supernatural, coincidental, true crime, we want to hear it, so please email storytime@scaryish.com. You can also go to our website, scaryish.com, and click on Contact Us. If you want to reach out to us on any of our social medias, please feel free to do so. I've mentioned it already, but Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast, Instagram is @scarishpodcast, and Twitter is @scarishpod. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go on over to patreon.com/scarishpodcast. Those are monthly donations. Tiers start at $1. You get a little bit of extra content there. Ad-free episodes. Hello, ad-free episodes. They're great. We have different tiers, like our Badge of Honor tier, where right now we have Mothman acrylic charms for anybody who's Badge of Honor and up. We also have a coffee, ko-fi.com/scaryish podcast, and those are one-time donations. All your donations go to helping us upgrade our studio setup, keep us motivated, and help us have time to keep making stuff, because it's been rough.
It has definitely been rough. But yeah, we appreciate everyone that supports us, no matter how it is, financially, giving us a thumbs up, clicking like, sharing our episodes, or just listening. And we've never experienced your presence, but you're just there by listening to us. No matter what it is, thank you all so much. We sincerely appreciate it. So it's late. The episode needs to be edited. I think that's just about everything we have. So Robin, go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.